Hello and welcome to another video from the All India Web Chess Federation. In this video, we shall be showing you an interview of player Tanmay Srinath. Tanmay Srinath has been playing actively on the All India Web Chess Federation server, and in fact he is currently close to winning the ongoing National Federation Championship of the All India Web Chess Federation. But today we are going to talk about an achievement of Tanmay, in which he has on the 5th of August, just 2 days before, he has become a Senior International Master SIM of the International Correspondence Chess Federation. Tanmay Srinath at AIWCF serial number 603 and with an ICCF ID of 280824 is now recognized by ICCF as a Senior International Master. What is remarkable about his achievement and his journey in correspondence chess is that he has obtained this title simultaneously of both International Master and Senior International Master by his present achievement. So now he has transited from being a player with the title of, now he is a title holder of both the International Master and the Senior International Master simultaneously achieved in his achievement on the 5th of August. To give you an idea of how unique his achievement is, I will put for you the ICCF achievements by Indian players. So if you go through an all-time record of Indian players who have been playing in the international era in correspondence chess, then there are only 8 players who have a title of uh, International Master or higher. We have, of course, plenty of players with CCE and CCM achievements, but here I am talking about achievements of International Master and higher. So there are only 8 players from India who have been able to get a title of International Master and higher than that. Currently, we have only one player in the history of correspondence chess from India who has been able to become a grandmaster, and we are hoping that we will be able to have another grandmaster. We are now, I think, coming close. I hope we will soon have more grandmasters from India. So the India's first international master was achieved, this title of International Master in ICCF was achieved by a player N.R. Anil Kumar. This was way back in 2001, and the same player N.R. Anil Kumar, an all-time great player of All India Correspondence Chess Federation, he became an international master of ICCF in 2001, and the very next year he became a senior international master. Now, this was an era 2001 2002 where engines and engine use was at the beginning stages of correspondence chess. So, this is actually an achievement in a different era. The same is true of our second important achiever, Santosh Matthew Paul. Santosh became an international master of ICCF in 2002. In international correspondence chess of ICCF, engines are allowed. So a player plays all his games in ICCF while looking at the positions in an engine and making best use of the engine to find moves which in the early days were dictated both by human thought as well as by, of course, this is still true today, that the move is dictated by a combination of human thought and engine assistance. Gradually, as time passes, the engine use and the optimum use of engines has become more and more important. And a player who achieved a title which went up to Grandmaster GM was PB Dhanish. So PB Dhanish became an international master as well as a senior international master in the year 2011. And 3 years later, he went on to become a grandmaster. Now, the player Krishnan Shashikiran, a well-known name from over-the-board chess as of today, he plays a lot of over-the-board chess, and he is involved in training as well as helping people and in the administration of chess. So Krishnan Shashikiran achieved the title of international. He's already, of course, a well-known grandmaster in the over-the-board game, but here I am referring to his achievements in correspondence chess in ICCF. So Krishnan Shashikiran became ICCF International Master in the year 2015, and soon thereafter, in 2016, he achieved the title of Senior International Master. But the title of Grandmaster is so far been elusive, and we are hoping that he gets there pretty soon. Our next player on this list is Om Prakash. Now, Om Prakash is a player of great strength. He has been playing wonderful chess on the All India Web Chess Federation server. He has been our champion several times. He is definitely one of our top players from India. He became an international master in ICCF just 5 years ago, and he's very close to becoming a senior international master. We do expect that he will achieve the senior international master, and we are expecting him to go forward and become a grandmaster as well. Similarly, I would say the status of Pawan Kumar, an equally great player with wonderful knowledge, wonderful ability, great experience in using engines and using them to your advantage in correspondence chess, as well as combining that with human thought and processing to find out unusual or different ideas in positions. So T. Pawan Kumar achieved the International Master title of ICCF in the year 2020. And again, we have great hopes that he will very soon achieve the Senior International Master and go on to become a Grandmaster as well. We have great hopes in these players. Player Abhijit Gupta is again a player with a well-known player of over-the-board chess, and I guess he has time to devote on international correspondence chess much less than others because of his over-the-board uh, engagements. However, Abhijit Gupta became an international master of correspondence chess 2022. If he is able to find time and play actively, he is again a potential senior international master as well as a grandmaster for India. But today's video is about Tanmay. So Tanmay Srinath, the eighth player listed here, just a few days ago, he became simultaneously he achieved the titles of international master and senior international master. This happened together, and he is now officially a senior international master or SIM in ICCF. Tanmay helped us in an interview earlier. So we had recorded an interview of our one and only Grandmaster, Mr. PB Dhanish. And PB Dhanish achievement was highlighted in this interview. I linked it here for you. It's there in our playlist as well. So you can watch this video if you want to know about Grandmaster Dhanish's achievement, which made also newspaper headlines. But today's video is about Tanmay. We invited Anil Anand, bulletin editor of the All India Web Chess Federation, and himself an active player on both the servers, All India Web Chess Federation and the ICCF. to conduct this interview. And for those of you who are interested, you can also read Tanmay's own comments about his achievement on ChessBase. So this has been published as a ChessBase news item, and the link is displayed here for you on the screen. So you can refer to that as well to read directly Tanmay's remarks. So now, without further ado, we will open this interview of Tanmay Srinath with Anil Anand and myself.
I feel the losses or the draws, which could have been wins, were perhaps more influential than the wins themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome Tanmay
Welcome.
to
Thank
this
you. Thank you for
podcast.
having me here.
Yeah, it is wonderful to learn about your achievement, especially your recent achievement of getting the SIM title, and it is quite a big, a monumental achievement in the sense that very few, I think you are the fourth person to have achieved this in AIWCF. So it's a great achievement. And the next ladder is only at the Grandmaster level. So that is actually the summit, I would say, of achievement. And can you take us through your journey through the last few years that you have seriously started taking this title, that you want to achieve this title? So can you quickly take us through your journey?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I think it's a pleasure to have this conversation with both of you. I would say that this was a incidental journey. I didn't really plan on growing up. Everybody thinks they want to be a chess professional over the board. I never thought correspondence would be such a major part of my life, even if you had asked me just before the pandemic. I started chess quite late, at the age of 13, by which point I think most of our modern players are either grandmasters or close to it. And then the usual 10th and 12th grade exams, they come in the way, the pre-university exams and all the entrances. So I realized quite early on that it was very difficult to make headway as a professional player, simply because I started getting all these additional commitments in my life. So I did, from 2018 till the pandemic began, I did try very hard to progress, but there was a point where my journey started plateauing a little bit because of the other conflicting assignments that I had to take up. So around that time, I would say, and this is the background of how I came into correspondence. 2017, I was in my 12th grade. I didn't know what to do because I was studying for my exams. So I approached Sagar Shah, who's the ChessBase India founder at that time, and said, "Can I write a few game annotations?" And I would say that is where the root of CC began, because I saw that you can be involved with chess in more than one way. And then from 2017 to 19, that transition slowly happened where I was writing a lot. I would start with game annotations, and then I went on to full-fledged sports journalism. I started covering all the top events, interviewing players. And then in Goa 2019, something interesting happened. And I think this will be covered in the future as well. I was there playing the B and C categories, and ChessBase India at that time, if people are aware, they were on this nomadic 1 year India tour, which they had begun. So he was in, I think, the Goa. I'm not sure if it was 18 or 19, but Sagar had covered both the 18 and 19 by setting up specific stalls. They were not still that big online, but so they were relying more on an in-person presence. So I was with them all the time in the stalls. When I was there, I could find time. I'd be with them in the studio. And then one day, this grandmaster Karthik Venkatraman, who's a very good friend of mine now, he comes around and we start talking. And I say, "You play B3 and you manage to win in games." I think this was before Adiban released that course and it became a phenomenon. So I was telling him I'm a big admirer of the way you play, and we were talking. And then randomly I show him one idea which I had found in this Rookie One Berlin, which later Vaishali used and beat a very strong Georgian woman player in the 2022 Olympiad. This I showed him back in 2019, the same idea. And he looks at it for some time and he says, "Well, if we can get this to work concretely, it'll be quite interesting." And that was the first real hint that maybe, I'm cut out for more than just playing. because here's a grandmaster. I'm a nobody at that point. I'm just a journalist and I've not done anything significant. And he has just become a grandmaster, I think, around that point, and he would go on to win two national titles and play for India at the World
So
Cup.
how old
So
were
clearly a
you,
very strong
Tanmay,
player.
at that point? What was the 2019 you were saying, right?
Yeah, 2019 around June, I think, May, June, whenever Goa happened, I think I was in my semester break.
Okay.
So I think that was the first real turning point, because I thought, okay, let me try writing a series of opening articles. And around the same point, 4 days later, I think at the end of the event, Sagar comes to me and asks, "You have been talking about this idea in the Benoni. Can you publish an article for the Chess Base magazine?" And these two, the Rookie One Berlin and the Four Pawns Antidote, which I gave, those were the first two opening articles I published. And that sort of really turned, things in the direction that it has led to today. Because I remember Oliver Ree, he's part of Chess Space. He came back to us after the Four Pawns article and he said, "Sagar, this is one of the best I've ever read."
Wow.
And that's something that has stuck to me, because he has received articles from grandmasters, super grandmasters, all those people. And to say that it was at that caliber, that showed me that this is probably where I belong. And then 2020 January, I played the Chennai GM. Back then, it was just one open category. I did reasonably well. And I came back, and just 2 months later, the pandemic began. Then I already at that point I was thinking that I should come back to correspondence. I remember having a conversation with Amber sir back in 2018, I think, just when I finished my 12th, but the timing was not right. And then when I came back in Jan, I reinitiated the conversation. I entered one open tournament, and then luckily or unluckily for me, the pandemic came. So my OTB aspirations just took a nosedive, because I knew the by the time the pandemic was done, I was already an intern at Walmart. So it was almost impossible for me to go back to professional chess over the board.
Okay.
And then the pandemic plus the opening articles and everything, that sort of got me into CC, I should say. And then I won my first two open tournaments that I'd entered. So that was clearly an indication that maybe this is the field that's cut out for me. So that's a little bit about how I began. I'll probably let you go into the questions now before I continue, because it's quite a long story.
So I'm curious a little bit about some of the things you mentioned. So I understand that your interest was had shifted a little bit. I mean, generally, when anybody starts learning chess at a young age, the first thing is that we play, and only after a little bit of maturity does the person try to think of something like journalism or reporting or contributing ideas in an opening and writing an article. That's something which only somebody much more mature would normally take up. We don't expect a person who is just doing his 12th or that kind of age. It's rather different, because we've heard of chess prodigies. That's normal. At a young age you become an excellent player, but this I think is rare. What we were saying, I haven't seen a person who enters into reporting chess or contributing ideas in opening theory in a formal sense. There are young people who might contribute by playing a startling move suddenly or in the actual game, but I haven't seen someone who has consciously looked for innovations or novelties in openings, and then imagine that novelty was actually used by Vaishali. That is something to my mind. I'm just trying to highlight some of the things which you have said, which I find little interesting aspects. What do you think, Anil?
Yeah, actually, when I hear Tanmay say this, I'm just reminded of Bobby Fischer. Actually, there was a tournament. I think it was in Havana. I just maybe I had to check that on.
So here is the game. It was a game played in the interzonal in 1958, where Bobby Fischer is on the black side, and against the Russian idea of the sacrifice, knight takes e6. He had introduced this move as a defensive counter, and that is rook to h7 as black.
where there was an idea which was played by three Russian grandmasters, I think against Argentinian players,
Oh yes, I
and
remember. This
a
was, I think
sacrifice
it's
on e6, if you
Maidorf.
remember.
Yeah, this was the Pologaevsky variation. Yes.
Yes, no, not that. It was a sacrifice on e6 pawn, and three players and all these three players. I think it included Petrosian, Keres. I think it was Geller's idea. So now everybody made the same move, and in each case they lost, and it was like a sensational move and that. But Bobby Fischer, when he is a guy who used to practice on his own a lot. He was a guy who did not, and but at the same time he was very much updated on what was happening in Russia. So he learned Russian for that. So he was that kind of dedicated guy, and no wonder he became a future world champion. But that time, he found a very interesting move called Rook at 7. Maybe I'll just check out and let you know. This was not played ever before, and that went on to become a great move. And later on, he managed to draw with that same move against much stronger players. So what I'm saying is, these ideas developing, it shows a certain bent of mind to be able to analyze in deep. Those days there were no computers, or we are talking about the 60s, so 60s or early, even before the 70s. So not much of computer was there, and most of the literature, they were mostly developed in the USSR those days. And he used to subscribe to those magazines sitting in US, and he learned Russian to understand the explanations, and he went to that detail, and at the same time he developed his own ideas. So it's interesting to hear you that you found a certain line in Berlin RE1, which is itself not very common. I mean, people play other variations in that. So what I'm saying is, you find a certain move, and then it is. I mean, any new move is always interesting, and that to finding a move, which I'm not sure if you use the engines for finding it, but to find something like this and other people exploiting it is something quite remarkable. But as Dr. Chatterjee is saying, Amberjee is saying that it is not normal, because most people, they try to, maybe I'm talking about previous generations. We used to see if any new move is there, and then we try to, use it in our games. It is rare that, somebody tries to go one step beyond and trying to, and it invariably used to happen, that people make a new move, and then subsequently an improvement comes, and that move becomes ineffective. And there was no easy way of fact checking it, whether this move is really good. In fact, I often see today, if you go back, I think you are very much into this engine analysis, you'll see many of the moves that supposed to be very good, when you put it to an engine, it doesn't look so good anymore. There are so many easy refutations, and then you get into trouble.
Yeah.
So that's what is happening now. So engines are become so powerful. So they are at 3600 or 3500 level. So they easily refute any the opening idea is no longer so easy to prove on the board. And everybody is using the same set of engines, call it Stockfish or Leela Zero, or
Yeah.
all these Alpha Zeros, and all these are available now, at least the free version. So they are known to all of them. And then and the moment you put it to an engine comes up with a refutation. So have you just my question is, have you checked it with the engine and worked through it and seen if any other refutations are available?
So yeah, I'll be very honest here. I sort of came into CC because there was an engine, and because I was quite good at using it. When it comes to this specific novelty, it was actually my idea, because I remember a very similar line. I think it in the same, if you go back and check this move, and I think we'll tag it in the upcoming AIWCF article, and probably it'll come in Chess Base India also at some point. At that position, this idea is not very common. So there is one, it comes in a similar position with the trade of rooks on e1. And then I was thinking the main problem there was that if black doesn't agree to that favorable trade and then allows white to go d5, right? Black will go meet d4 with d5, and it becomes a sort of this Petrov-like structure where it's very symmetrical, one open file. And the engine will give some advantage for white, but I feel correspondence, it's very easy to neutralize. And over the board also, we are seeing that trend now. I mean, Carlsen, I think, beat with it. recently, but it was a rapid game. I'm not seeing people winning there as white and classical that much anymore, and that was my problem, that there is not enough asymmetry in the position to be able to outplay somebody else, and that is something that's very important, be it CC, be it OTB. If you do not have asymmetry or imbalances, it's very hard to win. So that time itself I was thinking, okay, we are doing this, a few moves later, why not do it now? And that was the question I was asking. And then somehow I think that time engines were not understanding, that's the that's the magic. And it's been quite funny for me, many of the ideas that I found in, let's say, 2018-19 range, if you look at them now, they're probably one of the top computer choices.
Right.
For example, we'll not even go that far back. When I published Roaring Ready Part 1 for Chessable, I against this specific variation, right? Knight f3, d5, c4, d4, b4, c5. This started becoming very popular during the.
Yeah, I have read this. Yeah. This is quite in Reti. It is very popular.
Yes,
d4,
this
c5.
C5 move. I think f6 used to be the older main line, but c5 became. I think Leela started showing it in the pandemic times, and it became very popular. Here, I recommended this move, bishop b2. And today, if you see Stockfish, bishop b2 is the top choice. But back then, it was not even showing that move.
Okay.
Correct.
So
I think knight a3 used to be another move, as I remember, in that line.
Yeah, bishop b2 was probably the third or fourth choice when I was checking. Yes. Back, I think 22, 23 when I was writing the course. So this idea was sort of like that, right? It was my idea that I sort of worked with the engines to make it work. And another thing that helped me was the fact that this neural network engine called FatFits had just come out back in late 2019 with ChessBase. I think they introduced this idea of supervised training. Until then, Leela was just training on its own games. But then FatFits was the first real successful experiment, I should say, with training on existing games. The zero concept sort of went away. So the reason Leela was called Leela Chess Zero was because it was training on its own self-play games. It would play games against itself, learn and win. That's how AlphaZero worked. But FatFits, I mean, I know that Leela did try supervised learning. I'm going a little technical here, but please bear with me. Supervised learning is basically learning on previous games. You have a set of data, you learn on it, and you get the patterns from it, and then you play. So in a simplistic manner, if I had to explain. So I would say this was the first successful experiment, and then Leela also shifted to it at some point, and that's why it is where it is today. That engine sort of helped, and I just got a reasonable graphics card at that time. And this was when I talk about early 2021, Stockfish didn't have that neural network still. So there were so many ideas that it would end up missing that something like a FatFits would find. Like my first two tournaments just were majorly FatFits ideas. I think most of them are still relevant today. So I would say it was a combination of the 19 idea for sure was my brainchild, I should say, which I made it work with engines. But the reason I feel 2020 was a great point for me to get into CC, and the reason it worked out was because I had spent the 3 preceding years learning how to use them and learning what worked and what didn't, at least to a small degree. So I would say the development of engines sort of helped get into the field.
Okay. So from this, I would ask the next question, which is, see, now I think engine is indispensable. I mean, if you want to be successful at ICCF level and you want to reach higher levels of titles, especially SIM, and then next is GM. Now, the main question now I see is today, how do you avoid this draw paradox? Because what will happen now is that when two people of the approximately same ranking or same, I would say, rating itself, they cross swords, both sides try to play safe. Now, the issue is generally a higher rated player is less likely to offer you a draw. So the draws will be only between players of approximately, same rating. And this is true not only in CC, but it's true in OTB as well. They would not normally offer you. So then the issue is, if a higher rated player is playing you, he doesn't offer you a draw, then you will be anyway, motivated to fight and try to win because it helps your rating. And on his side, he will not be interested because he loses rating. But let us say you play a slightly higher rated player and he offers you a draw. Now, what options do you have? Because there's one option. The easiest option is to draw it. You don't lose, rating, but then you may not gain ratings as well, and your chances of making a higher norm, for example, will be that much more difficult. So, how do you navigate this? This is a major challenge nowadays, where it's quite possible the higher rated player is more busy, or he has more tournaments, or he's busy with more games, so he's not really motivated in fighting and trying to win. And this often happens because I sometimes see I've been in a discussion with some high rated player, for example, at GM level. He's playing a tournament where the highest norm itself is, say, CCM. So I was wondering, why does he play? So maybe he was inactive for a long time and his rating has dropped, so he's playing. Now he offers you a draw. So in this situation, what do you do? This is the first question that I have to ask. And the second thing on this is that how did you choose your tournaments, which helped you, to go from CCM to SIM? So these are two things. One is, what do you do when you play high rated players, and if you're in a situation where he offers you a draw? And second thing is, how do you select your tournaments? Because selection of tournament, I feel, is very, very vital today.
Yes. Okay, so I'll answer the first one and in a little more detail because I feel it's important. This has been my approach and it sort of worked out for me, and it translated a little bit for my OTB experiences also. I just don't look at rating when I'm playing, because now what has happened is, because of Stockfish, NNUE, it's become very easy for a lower rated player just to copy paste all the moves, and you cannot really win. And I'll be very upfront, right? If somebody copy pastes Stockfish at a very high depth, I don't think it's possible to win today. It's not. If that's why you're seeing at the World Championship level, you're having almost every game ends in a draw. And it has got to that stage. I would still say, the chances are not totally zero, but very, very close to it, I should say. Because I did win one game that helped me make this title, because Stockfish initially misses the refutation, but it's probably at a very, very low depth. And that's why I stopped looking at rating very early on, because I was in that phase, right? I was maybe 2157 to 2200 something, and I was easily making draws and winning against people stronger than me. So the moment I reached that higher rating, I cannot expect that, I was the unicorn and I'm the last person who will ever do this. So I never looked at rating. I would always look at the position. And I think, was it Gligorich who said, I play against pieces? So that's what I typically do. I play the position and I don't really look at the opponent. What I would do though is I would look at their game history. If they had a history of making input mistakes, or if they were struggling in specific type of positions and openings, then I would go test them there. But that was the extent to which I would sort of play against the opponent. Otherwise, it was mainly looking at the position and trying to make moves that would maximize my winning chances. And by that, I mean increasing complexity. I remember Wolf Morrow, who's a senior international master from US. I think we all know him. He had contributed to one article for the bulletin. We were chatting during the pandemic, and he said, I'm in a tournament now where a 2300 is playing like a 2500, and there's no difference. So I would say even now, if you look at the national championship that I'm still playing in, for example, I've made a lot of draws against people who are technically much lower rated than me, but they have played well. So there's very little I can do. If the opponent makes all the right moves, game will end in a draw. So I never looked at rating, and I don't think we should as well. I think the scheme of things has changed a lot. So now it is more about, can we try to find opportunities in a position? If not, then what would be the most pragmatic thing to do? Because if, let's say you have 12 or 13 games, let's say 14 games going on in an event, you cannot try to play for a win in all 14, because then you're stretching yourself too thin. So then you maybe look at the player and see, okay, is this person a copycat? Or is this person someone who's very, very engine reliant? And it's actually harder to beat such people. So you would say, okay, against them, I will try my experiment. So I remember recently I was playing some event. I wanted to try out the Kalashnikov. So I started playing Kalashnikov against people who were only copying the engine, because that way, my file becomes very good. I know they're using the first choice. So my file sort of creates itself after that. And then if I know that a person can be targeted, against them I would be a little bit more careful and specific in terms of what lines I choose. And that's something I go into depth as well in probably subsequent articles, that you have to choose lines where there is no force draw, and keep playing. And then there is a little bit of luck involved, of course, but that luck is not something that just comes to you through destiny or something. I feel you have to sort of be able to create that luck as well, and to be able to say, okay, I kept the position going this long, it still remains this complex, and if somebody ends up making an input error there, well, it was not a very trivial position to begin with, right? You don't want Ideally, we should not be winning games which is like you're purely drawn knight end game and he just hangs the knight. That is, I would say, pure luck. But a position where it's quite complex pieces on the board and they make an input error, or they mismatch moves, or they just get outplayed, that is the sort of luck that we should be getting and generating over time. So that was the first question, I should say. It is hard to win, yes. I won only 3 games to make the SIM title, 2 in one tournament where I needed 2 wins for the SIM norm, and one tournament which was very strong, so I just needed +1 to make the norm and the title. I'll probably go through those 3 games as well at a later point. One of them I did get lucky. The person lost on time, but the other 2 I had to manufacture wins on my own. The second question which you had was
before
mostly
you go
around
to the second
yeah.
question, let me comment on what you said so
Yeah.
far. So I think there are several aspects you covered, mainly related to engine. And I'm looking at one point. See, Anil and myself belong to a little generation. You are much younger than us. Now, when we transited through this journey, there was a era which we played, including correspondence chess, where engines were not there at all. Whereas for you, at the starting point, you know about engines. Rather, you're talking about the evolution of engines into artificial neural network technologies. Whereas we were playing chess at a time when, including correspondence chess, where engines were not heard of even. So what I noticed from what you are saying is that you are specializing further beyond that point, and therefore you are more honed into a situation of engine use, and you accept it. You know, there are people like us who have been fighting this issue, that there is an engine. What do we do? I don't want to play against an engine. But for a person like you, the engine is already there, so you can't ask this question that I wish engines were not there. What kind of a wish is that? We would wish that because we saw that change, but you haven't transited through that. You're born with it, so you're evolving through that. So you're looking now at incremental changes in the engine use. The big changes you have mentioned when artificial intelligence and neural net technologies were brought into chess. So that I think has fine-tuned your skills in handling. And I have only one question that you might explain to our viewers for 1 minute before we repeat the second part of the question, which you are going to answer now. So that question is, when you say input error, what I mean, I know what you mean, and so does Anil. But then there are viewers we have who are beginners in correspondence chess who might not understand a little bit more precisely. So can you elucidate that, please, for us?
Yes, I am very happy to. Let me actually show you from one of my games.
Yeah, that would be very good.
I think this is a funny game because it has 2 input errors. One from my end, which was not very costly, and one from his end, which basically lost him the game.
Uh-huh. Oh, the 7th move G5. Many people play the sacrifice on G5, which is more common instead of Bishop G3.
No, this is the anti-Moscow, no? Mainline.
Yeah. In that, this 8th move, no? Many people accept the sacrifice on G5, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I think we come
played
from very, very different generations. For me, it wasn't even a thing. They just start checking from Bishop G3, Bishop B7, and then or Bishop Knight
I see.
BD7.
So
Yeah.
mostly if in my generation, I would sacrifice on knight crosses G5 and then H G5, Bishop G5, and that's a different line altogether. But a strong line also as well.
Yeah, so this was the game from Champions League C group. If you remember, we were talking when the Champions League first came out, and I remember calling
Yeah.
Dr. Chatterjee and asking, okay, who do we form the team with? And
Yeah.
quite funnily, all the three top players I spoke to, they agreed. I think Lalit Kapoor, Gautam De, and Mohan Turaga. I think these were the three. I wanted Pawan Kumar to participate, but he said no, my rating is too high at that time because we were in the
Yeah.
C group.
Yeah.
And yeah, this I was on the fourth board. I was supposed to be I was the definitely the weakest player, back then.
I would
And
say
now
dark horse.
I don't know. I think things do get.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is
So
possible
this
to
is
grow over time.
anti-Maran Moscow variation, right?
Yeah, this is the anti-Moscow. So I think studying Alpha Zero games a lot at that time. I
Yes.
really loved these variations, and there was a specific idea that I wanted to try. Look, I didn't
Right.
even go into this game expecting to win it. Actually, I'll tell you why. So if you can make the first few moves, yeah. So can you go back just one move after Bishop E2? So my preparation specifically here was Bishop B7 and now Queen C2.
Okay.
So this was the idea that I had in mind, and I checked it very, very deeply.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a very, I should say, killer idea per se, but it
Yeah.
leads to this sort of opposite side castling, and something will happen
Yeah.
on the board, and there is
Yes.
some hope, I should say.
No, this
But
is one of the very sharp variations. I can say that because, as I said, even on the move 5, Bishop H4, DC4, E4, G5, Bishop G3 is in my time used to be less common. We used to straightaway make those times we used to play knight crosses G5, H G5, Bishop G5, and that's a line by itself. Quite a sharp one. It's no no less sharp.
I think I'm slowly remembering. There's a similar idea in the Botvinnik. I think maybe Black will go some
Yeah,
rook
it
E8,
is a similar in Botvinnik, yes, yes, something similar. Anyway, just let us go back to your idea. It's good.
Okay, so
You said
we go ahead
Queen
to
C2,
rook
yeah?
G8.
Yeah, and now the thing is, I didn't check my file here.
Okay.
So I think rook G8, this specific idea is not very strong for some reason. The reason that you see in the game, which is knight H5. So after Queen C2, knight H5, I'm already worse.
Okay.
So this was the first, you would say, input error, because you're not sure what the position is and you're trying to play the same idea against a different position. This is one way you can categorize an input error.
Correct.
And yeah, we can go to the game now. So Queen C2, knight H5, and it was quite clear here that I will have to start begging for a draw. And okay, I mean, I was still lower rated, so I was fine with it. Anyway, I was not looking to win. And then you can start going now. I think I had to find this very interesting plan. I go Bishop E5 to provoke F6, and then at some point I give the D4 pawn also.
B5.
Yeah, so now short castle, which is, you give up the D4 pawn. I do not think Black could take immediately for some reason. But yeah, let's say triple O, and now King H1 was important, because otherwise this G3, you're not in time with this bishop into, because knight into, and there's a pin on the F pawn. So now, yeah, now he took. So I'm,
D4.
yeah, queen into D4, but now after A4 I start getting some counterplay, and it's not very clear cut, I should say. It is, Black is still slightly better. I mean, it's quite clear, right? Two bishops, because after Bishop H5, GH2, I was the one who was playing for equality here, but I gave a conditional at some point. I think it was from the 20th move itself. So A4, G3, Bishop H5, GH2, and from here the variation becomes very forcing.
So here,
yeah, Rook FD1, and
so
basically it's a very long force line which I had worked out with the engine at home, and it took some work. It was not just I copy pasting stuff. It really had to study the position deeply and find options, because I think after G3 there was also, or just before that, there was a way you had choices on which bishop to give up, I think.
Right.
So at some point, and I chose to give up the dark squared bishop.
Right. You could instead have sacked the other bishop.
Yeah, I think I could have. Yes, I think there was one variation with that, but it was not quite working, which is why I decided to give this.
So at which point have we come out of known theory?
I think we came out very soon after Queen C2.
Okay.
I don't think that Queen C2 is not a good move.
Not a good move.
Probably you're out very early. here.
But what
And
about B4 then? I just one question. Instead of G3, why he did not play B4? Or you expected him to play B4?
in this one.
no, I think B4 should not be that great in that position. I'll actually
Because I want to lock up rather than allow you to open the king side. I mean, just I'm looking at it that way.
I think then we
okay,
go ahead with
okay. Let me try checking it without an engine and
rook
see how
d1,
strong I
rook
am.
d1, for example, rook fd1.
Yeah, rook d1, and I can actually even give up that
Yeah,
knight.
we should give up that knight. The king will be opened quick. Uh,
Yeah, but then you can always play. I mean, C5 and yeah. I mean, it is because both bishops are blacks. Bishops are quite well placed then.
so
The bishop can come to D6. I mean, I'm just thinking we have to see.
Yeah, you
I'm very
can probably check.
superficial.
I don't think it's a good move. You can
Yeah,
just.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Superficially, it looks
I'm
like
surprised.
B4, C5, bishop D6. I mean,
it's
it's
showing white
difficult to.
equalizing quickly with rook ad1 as I
Yeah.
predicted. Rook ad1 qc5 is the variation which Stockfish is recommending here.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, and then knight
Yeah.
b1, and you get an improved version of the game, I would say, because now the c4 pawn will mostly hang,
Yeah.
and you get
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that it is weak actually, C4. But if you can provoke it and yeah,
So
because the line in the Botwinic lines are like that. You have to play
yeah.
early C5 and B4. I have played it. That's why I'm quite
see here,
comfortable
notice
with
the
those rules.
Stockfish soon finds the equal line for white. Okay.
Which is that?
Rook ad1, qc5, nb1. The knight retreats and saves itself.
Yeah.
And
Okay, and reorients from maybe knight D2. Yeah, that is also
Yeah,
possible.
I'd be surprised if this is the end of it. I'm pretty sure white would even be slightly better
yeah, I also
after
think
some
so. A
point.
little more depth and we'll get there. But it is giving me that
Yeah, yeah. B4
Yeah, yeah,
also
but
is a very serious option, I think. But anyway, let us go
interesting.
back to
We
your
go
idea.
back to the game itself. G3 is what he
Yes,
played. Okay.
G3
G3 is
played.
what he played. And then you have replied bishop cross h5.
H5.
So
So he kept the
you
bishop, yeah,
decided
and
to,
gave up the
yeah,
dark.
you kept this bishop, but aren't you playing on the wrong side of the board? Is the what it looks.
no, not really, because now after gh2, my king is very safe on h1,
Hmm.
because now it's very difficult to get to the
Hmm.
king. And I can always play a move like g3 to close the g file, and then the bishop would come to the long diagonal, and basically there is no attack. And now I will slowly start counterattacking on the other side, which is what happens in the
Okay,
game.
so
You see.
now you attack his
Okay,
queen,
okay.
and then he retreats
Yeah.
to b6 square. I don't
Queen
think there's
B6.
any other good
Okay.
square for him. And
Yeah, yeah. I think now we can go a little
faster. Now
faster,
bishop
because I
f3
don't think
obvious.
this is a very relevant
Then rg7.
portion to the
Okay,
input
let's see.
error per se. I mean, people can study this game later. So now after e5, you can see the long diagonal is open,
Yes,
and see how safe the king is on h1, because there's no way to get at
Yeah.
it.
absolutely.
That is the
Yeah, yeah. You reminded me something, Tanmay, here. There is a game between Karpov and Timan where the pawn reaches A7 and Karpov never takes the A7 pawn. I don't know. Have you seen that game?
Uh,
He never
I
takes
know
it.
some Karpov game where he puts the bishop on a7 and doubles on the a file. I
No, here the Timan pawn reaches A7
hmm,
and he plays his king
below it.
to H1. Sorry,
A.
A8, and then later on, the white bishop was on C8.
That's a
Something
that's
like
a
this.
thematic idea. I think it is
It's a good idea.
present in
It
many
was
lines. I remember some dragon position also. It is there. You
yes.
when you allow the pawn forward and then h7, just put the king on h8, keep the bishop on g7. There's no attack,
Hmm,
because
hmm.
Yes. It
the
was
long
quite
diagonal
a
is.
revolutionary idea, having a pawn on your king side and not taking the pawn. But
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. It's a self block.
This is
It's a
this
kind of
is
self block.
self block.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Knight
now
e2.
the game becomes
Okay,
quite sharp,
then
and I trade down into an equal
so
endgame.
he comes here.
Knight
This is
Okay,
e2,
probably the best I could achieve if you
queen
just keep
f2,
yeah.
going.
And so he
queen c.
oscillated his queen, and then you just to take a pawn, and you have this situation, and then a cross b5, c, and then q a5. So you are going towards the end game now. Q a5, rook
Yes, because that is the best I can hope to achieve in this position, to be
but
very
the attack
honest.
wouldn't be there. If you kept the queens on the board, you wouldn't have been able to continue the attack on the king side, on his queen, on his king. So this was a good choice. Then the rook is doubled here, and then he has played bc5.
Yeah, now this is a liquidation sequence. It's
Okay,
not very
okay,
hard
okay,
with modern engines
okay.
to.
So bishop,
And the point is the b5 pawn is weakened,
right? Now
so
he
you.
can interpose the bishop, and then
But now you
you
take,
take,
and the point is b7 rook
and
hangs.
then you can give this check, and here we
So everything was a conditional,
okay,
and this is the
okay.
beauty.
These are
Up to rook takes b7, up to rook takes d7, every move was a conditional.
up
From
to
move
rook
20, 22, I
from
think.
22. So you are saying that this
Yeah,
is a forced sequence, more or less forced.
yeah, more or less
He
forced.
doesn't have many options here. Not really.
No, if he deviates, it's easier for me to
Yeah, I
equalize.
mean, if you follow the chain, this is why I'm explaining this, because there are many CC players who may be watching who are not that experienced. So there is a
Yeah,
situation when we do the analysis using engines, we find that the engine has a move which is dominant. That means the score given to other moves is poor, not that good. So it's unlikely that he would. And by the way, conditional moves are hidden, so the opponent does not know that you have a conditional sequence that you are proposing. He can probably guess because the reply comes back pretty fast. So he guesses that maybe it's conditional,
Yeah.
but there's nothing much he can do with that information. And by what Tanmay is saying here is that the conditional sequence was more or less forced. That means there were very little opportunities for him to change it. So this
Improve.
is why
Yeah.
he proposes a chain of moves, which helps him to save time as well as effort. In CC, a lot of time goes in sending the move, and your time with your personal work and so on when you want to open a game and then reply. So when you give conditional move, what happens is that you are relieved from that botheration. The game proceeds ahead. So here, when he has gone back and you have repeated moves here, and then he has tried to go the other way, and eventually you have taken the rook. So he didn't.
yes. So this is where the biggest mistake happens from him. This is what you can call a typical input error. So he goes rook d7, and I'm pretty sure he made this move on his own. No engine will show it. And instead, rook d2, and the game should peter out into a draw. I mean, black is still. I would still prefer black because connected passes on the queen side potentially,
Yes.
but
Yes.
game should end in a draw ideally.
Okay,
But he plays rook d7.
which is too ambitious.
No, which is just a stupid move. I mean, after bishop c6, you can just resign.
Acha. So here is rook d7.
Yeah. The rook is trapped, right?
Oh, I see.
Use bishop
I
c6.
see.
Yeah, just
Rook
resign.
is
I see.
trapped.
Rook d2 is
Rook is,
yeah. I got confused. I thought he's actually played rook d. It's rook d7 he has played. I
rook
rook
b7
d2
is.
is a natural
Yeah,
move here.
this is an input error, and yeah, after bishop c6,
Hmm.
Oh,
you can just
yeah.
resign.
So he has confused himself.
No, basically, I see. He thought there's no option but to exchange the rooks. He didn't see this,
Uh, but
intermezzo or
surprising that there
in
can be
between
a
move.
blunder in CC at this level. Because look at I
Yes.
know this person a little bit. Surnames looks familiar. 2 3 4 5. You see, so he is rated 20 points higher than you at that point of the when the game is played. He's
Yeah.
2 3 4 5. You cannot imagine that a player of his level will miss a simple pin. Okay, but why? The
Yes.
reason is
Yes.
this: it's a long sequence of forced moves going pretty fast. Okay, so he hasn't bothered to calculate here at all.
Yeah,
He
Correct.
hasn't checked this move on the engine because he just played it without engine assistance, thinking that he's anyway going ahead, right? And overconfidence. This is what happens sometimes.
Correct.
yeah, and
Probably
bishop
he's
c6.
already made up his mind that it might end in a draw. Like I think that's what he wanted. I think he wanted the exchange of rooks, and maybe he was thinking ahead.
Yeah, because I think after you take, it becomes a very one-sided game, right? Because black's queen side
Yeah.
majority will probably just dominate. The e pawn
Yes, they
is.
will just win. Yeah, yeah, they will win. Very
Yeah,
difficult to stop them.
but okay, chess is always. Sometimes you
Yes.
miss the simple things in life. And probably they're the ones that are most important. Bishop c6 and 1-0.
Great, great, wonderful. I think you shared with our viewers what do you mean by an input error. This is a very startling thing and
Yes.
fairly unimaginable that it can happen in a game at this level in correspondence chess where there's an engine behind every move. So it's nice that you could explain to our viewers. We will now go ahead with the second part of the question, which Anil will repeat for you. The second question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I think in this whole sequence we forgot about it. But the question was that if you have players who are much higher rated than you, and they offer you a draw at an early stage, and you are chasing a norm or maybe your final norm for a title, Now, what options do you have? As you already explained that you normally don't worry about the rating of your opponent. You try to play the position rather than, you don't have any apprehensions about the rating, and you focus on the opportunities that the game offers, the game in question offers. So, how do you, navigate these challenges? As you said, at least you explained briefly that you see where, you know, the opponent is playing purely engine recommended first choices, where you don't have much leeway to really fight for a win. But in the majority of the cases, how do you navigate your way ahead through
Okay.
such games?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question and something I've thought about a lot. I think my approach is, yeah, the question I think was more about which tournaments do you choose, right? I think that was, if I
Yeah, that was
remember.
the second one. Yeah, yeah. Yes.
So, yeah, regarding the higher versus lower, I think I've already answered that. I generally don't look at ratings, and it translated a little bit from my OTB thing also. I was always a very underrated player, at least as far as my coaches were concerned. Because they used to say, okay, you're doing this well, you're solving these hard positions, but somehow in the game you make these stupid moves and you end up losing. And I sort of initial days of my CC, I carried that to CC as well. There was one input error I made that nearly cost me a loss. I mean, I nearly lost that game. And then there was one where I actually lost because I forgot to insert an intermediate sequence before playing a move. But that sort of taught me, and after that, I came out. A small digression aside, I think I generally don't bother too much if they offer a draw. There was one case I remember where the person got really offended. This was against. I remember me and Dr. Chatterjee had a call with PB Danish. This was about 2 years ago, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I remember showing after the call, I showed Danish one position where I was playing this Nimzo Larsen and I tried to play for a kingside attack, and the person offered me a draw around move 18, and I said, man, why are you offering? Not a single piece or pawn has been exchanged. I don't care whether it is 0.00. We play on. Like, why are you offering a draw? I put a comment. I can be quite abrupt on comments sometimes. And the person got very annoyed, and he sort of forced a table based draw at some point much later in the game, or forced me to repeat. So I
Yeah.
generally I take a draw on my own terms. That's what I say. I don't wait for somebody to do it. There have been cases where people have refused draw offers from me also and played on. And initially I didn't understand, but now I respect it, right? It's their choice. If they want to play, they should play. I typically don't appreciate it when people drag on in losing positions because I've never been that sort of player. And CC is not a field like OTB, right? At least the current CC. The older CC, maybe there is hope. The ones that you used to play. Now there is an engine, and if it's a +3 or a +4, it's over. The game is over. There is no chance. And this is not a +3 or +4 where you can try to get a table-based draw. It's a +3, +4 where in the middle game, which will probably liquidate into a winning end game, and you'll probably even mate at some point. So that's what I've generally not appreciated in players. And there have been scenarios. It has happened in national championships. It is still happening. It has happened in other events. So that's the only case
So
where
let me say
I would sort
something here
of.
to make it clear to our viewers. What Tanmay is saying is that you see, correspondence chess is a very different kind of situation as compared to over-the-board chess. Now, in today's correspondence chess, I'm talking about we also have without engines. We also have correspondence chess where engines are not allowed. But
Without
here we are
any.
talking about no, we are talking about correspondence chess where engines are allowed. Now, since you have an engine and obviously you are using it and both parties are using it, so I know that you know and you know that I know that the engine is showing that the mate is in 25 moves. Then what is really the point? Because you also know that your opponent who's winning the game, he knows, he has seen the 25 move sequence. He's not seeing it himself. His computer is showing him. Do you think that he will not play those moves which are there? I mean, it's ridiculous. So there's no point in prolonging the game. The only reason, like they used to say in the old days, it's a football game and you're about to lose, you hope for an earthquake or something, the whole cricket match stops. It's something like that. Otherwise, why would you not
Yeah.
resign? Because you're saving your own time as well as the opponent's time who's busy with many games. See, correspondence chess
Yeah.
puts a lot of pressure on a person, which many people don't know. Those who play only over the board, they think that correspondence chess is a very relaxed mode. It is a relaxed mode, but the tension is high in a different way, because you are dealing with a very
Yeah.
large number of games simultaneously, and you have other games which you have to concentrate, and it requires a huge amount of concentration. Correspondence chess. So when you free a person of a game which he's anyway winning, you're actually doing a service to him. So that is why I do not appreciate resigning early necessarily. I mean, it's up to you at which point you resign. But when a forced sequence where material loss is huge, like without any compensation, and where even sometimes engines are predicting a mate in 25, I think it's a nice policy that you end the game there and then.
Yeah.
That's what Tanmay is trying to say. We go on. This was a clarification for our viewers.
Yes, yes. So that was more about, like terms of results, what I see. But generally, draws are on my terms. There have been games where even the engine shows zero, I see some potential, I play on. So I don't really look at it's mostly a combination of my judgment and what the computer is telling me in that position. If it's not asking me to repeat, and I'm willing to take some risks at times. There, you can see many of my games I will actually have a negative eval in my favor, meaning my opponent might be slightly better, but I would have chosen to play on because I might have seen something much further down the line which might work out in my favor. It has worked for me. One of the games that I won recently in a Catalan, it is probably equal in 10 different ways, but to be able to see that potential where your opponent doesn't, I think that's how you win nowadays. You need to not just go deep. You need to be able to learn how to combine your own intuition with that of the engine, and see, okay, this is a potential place where the engine might misstep, and that's how you try to win. And in terms of tournament choices, I have to say I was not very intelligent in the beginning. I would just play whatever came to mind, and that cost me a little bit, I should say. The initial days, the open ones that I played, they were okay because you knew that the opponent caliber was not that high, and it is easier to just copy paste your way to victories. But then once the caliber starts increasing, you will find multiple copy pasters, and you have to, if you need to distinguish yourself from them, it becomes a very time consuming affair. So that's where I think I got some advice from a lot of people, and I decided to restrict myself to playing one event at a time. And one thing I learned is not to play norm events, the specific norm events, because they've never worked out for me. I have played, I think, one master norm event or maybe two, I don't remember now. But that event, it was just everybody is playing at a very high level. Only one person made a norm because his opponent made an input error in a very innocuous Alpine variation. Very, very. I mean, you don't expect it. Like Dr. Chatterjee was saying, you cannot expect it at that level. And that was not a very good experience because we are putting months into it, right? It's one tournament is not 3-4 days like over the board. You're spending
Years, I should say.
at least 6 months for
Often
your
more than a year.
yeah, more than a year in general. More than a year in general. But I'm saying, if you're playing at lightning speed, then probably 6 months. And then it's such a waste of time because you're spending money and you're spending efforts, hours with the computer, and then you're making all draws. What's the point? Which is why I was actually very surprised when I made my title eventually, because I went into both those events thinking, okay, I will anyway make all draws. Let's have some fun in some of the games. And I ended up winning those. So I would say now we need to be a lot more careful. I remember at one point, Gautam Dev was telling once when we were asking him about something that I'm playing 70 games at once. I don't know how he was managing it. I could barely manage 20 games at a given point. It becomes very hard. You become a copy paster at that point because you cannot really go deep into the position and try to identify nuances. For that, you need time. And that you get only when you're playing one event, or let's say there's an event where you've entered the late middle game, for example, you're more or less sure how the game is going to go. Then it's fine to register for another one and give it a shot. Third one, I would say, which is very important, is you have to play international events. Specifically, for example, Africa, Asia. Now I'm seeing the recent one that started, the finals. I see Alok Saxena is playing. I see a few other Indians. And I'm pretty sure Alok Saxena will make an SIM norm because I have not seen him lose a game in a long time now. I think the last time he lost was when I beat him in the national championships during the pandemic. And he has won 2 games because his opponents did not play their moves on time. So basically, he won on time. And I was thinking, oh man, I wish I had played this. I had crossed 2,500 very easily. And I had the choice to play it because I had qualified. And I told the organizer, no, it doesn't seem like a strong enough event. I want to go for the higher norm, so I will not play. But turns out you could make SIM norms that way as well, and he will probably make. And there's one more player from India, I think Lalit Kapoor. I don't remember. Yeah, you can just check the latest Africa Asia tournament if you check. Pretty sure they will make the norms.
No, other thing happens sometimes. Interesting thing. What I have noticed is, I have been on the wrong side of this. I had entered a tournament where if I make 7 points, maybe I will make a CCM. Now, what happened? One player, he played for some time, lost maybe half the games, and then he withdrew. So those people who won against that guy, they were lucky, so they already got a point. And since this guy withdrew from that tournament, they kept the norm requirement the same and removed one player. As simple as that. So then I found, what is this? Like you had say 6 games or 7 games. Now it became 1 game less, 6 games, and you have to have the same score, which was practically not possible.
Yes. Yeah.
So then what happened was we ended up, I gave draws to all because I know it is, as you see the position, there's not much chance of winning. Players are very high rated. So these are also other things. This is one. In another tournament, I lost, I think, 3 CCMs. I missed by half a point. So I was very, pesky about this. Because what happened in another tournament, what they did is that the player, he lost majority of the games. And then I said, okay, the guy is about to lose. Last minute, he was replaced. And another player came in and he continued to play very aggressively and strongly and managed to draw. Yeah. So this also happens. So I think that is why the challenge is, actually you have to not play very strong tournaments where everybody is rated, 23 or 2400 or 2500, because then your chances of making a norm or, it's much more difficult. Instead, if you have a tournament where you have very low rated and high rated players, the likelihood of low rated players withdrawing is much higher. High rated players rarely withdraw. Yeah. So
I will actually add a counterpoint there. I think Dr. Chatterjee wants to say something.
Put in a news flash before we go ahead, and that is yesterday it came that we have one more player from India. He's made a SIM norm, that is our own Om Prakash. So congratulations to him.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Okay, Tanmay, go ahead. You were saying something.
Yeah. I want to add a counterpoint to what Anil sir just said, because I have actually had the opposite problem where a lower rated player plays really well or plays really well for some time and then ends up losing. So can we go back to the database? Because I think this is a very instructive moment. My game against Mihir Nani Vadekar from the AIWCF 1518 championship.
Yeah.
Because I think this is the game that cost me my first national
title. I'll have
title.
it on the screen in a moment.
Okay.
Yes, I'll give a bit of background in the meantime while you're loading this. So this is the tournament where I think I tied with Om Prakash for first. I think even the third place, it was a tie. The top 3 was a tie on 9.5. And I think Om Prakash's SB was 0.5 better than mine. And he went on to win the tournament. And I feel this was the game that cost me, because then what I was doing was not very intelligent. I was just following this Game Changer book which Sadler wrote on Alpha Zero games. And I remember this Queen F5 idea on Move 11 is what it used to win a lot of games. So I just thought, this is not a very strong player, doesn't seem like a very strong player. Let me go here and win. But this was a decisive mistake because it cost me a half point, which would have, I'd have won the title outright if I'd won this game. Because
can we go through Dr. Chatterjee at Queen 11, Queen F5? I think this is what you're saying.
Yeah, you can just go through the moves a little bit. Yeah, just probably through your keyboard arrows. That'll be faster.
Yeah.
So this is the mainline Queen's Indian, right? It's quite
Catalan, right?
Quite a popular system. And here Queen C2 is this line that Alpha Zero revived back in 2018-19. This gambit with D5 and you give the pawn, but then
D3 or Bishop D2. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so game becomes extremely sharp now. But it's very well-known theory also, and that's another mistake I So that's why later on now if you see my games, I try to deviate as early as possible, because I don't want them copy pasting somebody else's efforts and then using that to easily make a draw. This is what happens. So rook d1, knight c6. And here was the mistake, because I did not check this person's games. He told me later that queen a4 is stronger here. He said queen f5 had worked out to a draw. He sent me a chat after the game and he said, no, you missed a trick here. If you had played queen a4, it's a different story.
I see.
And okay, I'm not going to go into objective merits, right? That's not a point of this discussion. We'll maybe write another article about this someday. But the point is, queen f5, the play becomes extremely forcing. And it's exactly the sort of position which a lower rated likes, because if they're using a decent enough engine and the play becomes forcing, they'll probably easily make a draw. So here I had this interesting idea in mind, which he just, like it liquidated almost immediately. So this was a game that sort of cost me the title, I should say, because this one moment was, if you go back to the table and look, he has lost a lot of games to other people. That allowed him others to catch up, because I had beaten a lot of strong players in the event. I beat Shailesh on the black side of a Sicilian Scheveningen. I beat another, I'm not remembering the name now, but I beat Alok Saxena on the white side of Areti. And then, of course, the last three, I think, were people that I had beaten anyway. Most of them were beating. So, but these two were very strong players, right? Typically, you don't expect to win against them. So I thought +5 is sufficient. But then Om Prakash ended up winning against R.K. Chauhan and I think one more player. So he ended up catching me, and his SB was higher because I had failed to win this game. If I won this game, no, he couldn't catch me, because he would make a maximum of +5 and I would make +6. This was a very important lesson for me in my CC journey, because I realized you need to be very careful about what lines you choose. This was a very bad choice. Very, very bad choice. Just a lazy choice, I should say. Just looking at a book and thinking I'll play it. No, I had not done enough research, and that cost me the national title that year. Okay, I mean, delayed but not denied. I'll probably win it this year.
Yeah.
So
this was I'll show you the idea. It was actually interesting. So knight e4 was my novelty.
okay.
So if you keep going further, here Alpha Zero had won against every other move except Queen B8, and Queen B8 is the only move. One of the only moves, I should say.
I see.
Okay.
I had this mistaken impression that this line itself Stockfish underestimates. No, the line is good after Queen B8.
How do you think he found this move? Because the player, I mean, he analyzed it on the engine and then discovered it at a higher depth. This is Nani Vadekar. Okay.
I'm not sure. He said he had already played a Queen f5 game, and in that he had discovered. So there was another tournament where somebody had tried this against him. And that's where I realized the parallels between CC and OTB are more than we think. Because if I had looked at his history and I had seen that he had faced this and I had checked Queen B8, I'd have seen, okay, no, maybe Queen B8 is not working. So shall I choose something a lot slower? And the second mistake that I made was I was playing very fast. I was playing maybe in a day or 2 days per move. And he was alert in the beginning of the event. Later, he started losing on time or making more banal mistakes, I should say. And that was the second lesson from this game. Don't play too fast. And that's something I'm using to my benefit in the current national championship. I think this player, it's well aware, it's in the bulletin already, Satyajit Das. Initially, he played, he's probably 1,800, but every copy pasting Stockfish moves left, right in the beginning. And then he just went silent. And I think Mohan Turaga and Alok Saxena, if I remember correctly, are two people who made draws against him, because they are typically players who play very fast. And then the guy ends up losing against almost everybody else after that. So that was a good plus to have, because I ended up making draws against, I think, Valsan Kannawat and a few other people who are much lower rated than me. So I was losing some rating there, but this win sort of, the minus and plus cancel themselves out. So I thought this game is very instructive for that reason, right? I would say now it's a pleasant memory actually, because I learned so much from it that I could use it in later tournaments. Why I felt it relevant.
But interestingly, that was, I think, Meher's first tournament. I have not seen him at a national championship before. And I was very surprised to see his performance. He performed very well in the beginning. So I was wondering later on what happened to him because he, just kept on losing games.
Yeah, that's the point, right? That again, especially against lower rate rates, there's a reason they're low rated. One, they're using inferior engine or they think on their own at some point, which is, you cannot do that in CC. I would say even Shashi Kiran cannot think on his own in a very high level CC game, and then, I mean, he's good. He's really, really good. He's the second ever person to cross 2-7, right? But I doubt he will also take the chance in a given position to say, I will just play this move without checking it with an engine. I doubt he will at the level he's playing at. I sincerely doubt it. With all the respect for him, I don't, if he cannot do it, I don't think anybody else in the AIWCF arena or even the international arena can afford to do such things. So
no, CC is a different ball game, as I say, because OTP can, your OTP experience can help, select lines and all those things. But at the end of the day, like it is calculation and a very deep calculation. I think there you cannot beat an engine. So anybody who tells me that you can play without, using an engine and by your own resources is next to impossible. To be honest with you, I tried one championship. I think it was 1509. Because 1508 was my first championship where I came fourth. Danish was the winner that time.
yeah,
And even I drew with Danish as well. That was my first and only draw with him. But 1509 was the next one. I played without using engine at all. And I think I was in the bottom half because you make blunders which I believe if you have a reflection of 5 minutes with the engine you will catch it,
yes,
but later on it is very obvious. I never saw that those I tried to see those games maybe about 10 years later on the engine and found maybe out of 14 games I played, 10 games at least had blunders, and they were not mistakes, they were not minor mistakes, real blunders.
yeah,
So if my opponent also, because those days the engines were also not very developed, they
yeah,
also missed moves. Otherwise I would have wounded up even much earlier. So when you do this kind of thing, I remember I played one game against Dr. Chatterjee. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I made a big sacrifice there, but then I was busy with I was transferring from one country to the another. I didn't follow up. But now if I look at it, I see that the game would have just ended in a draw. But that time it looked very, very strong. But this is
yeah,
what happens, when with the development of the engine, things have become, I think even CC itself has changed a lot.
yes,
You cannot just make a move on your own without even the simplest moves. You need to check because you don't
yeah,
know what hidden resource is there for your opponent. What looks like a winning game with one blunder, like you just showed one queen b8. One great move can change things around. It can the well can go from 3 to just 0 in one move. It happens so often that it's often happens more often than we think. Actually, I've noticed this many times.
yeah.
So, thank you for that
So,
insight.
So yeah, this was one game. I mean, you can look at it later. The novelty came on Moon 21, but it wasn't very. I mean, I looked at it today, and it isn't actually one of the most dangerous attempts. So clearly not my best moment, but I think it is one which it was a very good teaching moment, and that's why if you look at the database in general, I have a lot of teaching moments because you cannot victories are won based off your previous losses. When you lose or when you make mistakes, that is the foundation on which success is built on. So for me, at least, it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes before I
so
reached this point.
Tanmay,
So then my other question with this is that do you repeat your openings? Because see, if you have to improve on your lines, you need to repeat your openings more often than not. Do you play a selected number of openings, or you try to keep a wide range of openings?
I think again the answer is that the approach has changed over the years. So when I started out, I used to play very very interesting systems, I should say, at least ones that I used in my OTB repertoire. If Dr. Chatterjee can go back to this game against Bearman, that's the first game in the database. So I played the Wing Gambit, which is an interesting line, but probably not CC worthy, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, it'll work if the person at the board is solving problems, but here you're white is the one who will solve problems in
you
the
want
line
to
that
go
I
back
chose
to
at
which
least.
game, Tanmay?
The first game in the
Eh,
database, my game against Bearman, Joachim Bearman. Yeah, that was a missed half point, I feel, to this day, because if I just played the open Sicilian, I'm pretty sure he would have made a mistake at some point. Again, same person made a draw against me, was losing against others because they're probably making smarter choices. Yeah, we can go. Yeah, you can just go through the first few moves because I'll tell you. So if you can go to Queen D8, because that is, I think, the first real critical moment. Anybody familiar with Ring Gambit theory will know that this is the move that is causing a lot of problems for White nowadays. Yes. And I mean, it looks very stupid, but Knight takes E5, Queen D4 has actually happened and people have resigned.
What? Okay.
Okay. It's hitting the rook and the knight. Yeah, I can see it.
Yes. So here, bishop e2, e4, and the main move is knight e5, which I knew at the point of the game, but then knight e5 liquidates. So I was working with International Master Shivananda BS at that time. He's my I would say chess mentor, but back then he was my coach. We used to work a lot. I was playing a lot of OTB also, and knight e4 was his idea. So I gave him this position and I said, look, Queen d8, I'm just not able to crack with an engine, so it's on you. And he's very, very creative as a player. I would say he's one of the people who should have been GMs but is not because of a couple of chess cheaters. One of them has been named, one of them is not. I'm okay naming the person now. I mean, it's common knowledge. If you talk to Sandeepan Chanda, you talk to Kidambi, because you said you knew them, right? You talk to anybody from that generation and you ask them who the second person is, they will know. Problem is they had a lot of federation support, so they got away with a lot of things at that time. There's a lot of support from higher ups. So yeah, that digression apart, is knight d4 was his idea. And the point is, I think now this ba3, knight a3, black was able to liquidate after knight e5, ba3, knight a3, knight c6. And black was able to liquidate somehow. Here, yeah, b into a3, knight into a3, and knight c6. This was the line. And okay, then there's a lot of theory here. You can go deeper. Eventually, the point is you will trade queens, and the bishop pair for white will compensate for the missing pawn. But it's an uncomfortable endgame to play in general. So the idea behind knight d4 was to avoid this endgame. But it's a very wrong choice in CC. Very, 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 very wrong choice. I was probably lost on at least 2 occasions, which I marked there. Can we go on? Knight a6 is the top choice of the engine. Very, very sophisticated move. Bishop e2, knight f6. Yeah, we can go. Castles. Again, bishop c5 is very sophisticated. If black directly goes bishop e7, I'm probably fine. But the point is to kick the knight to a worse square and then go bishop e7. So even though you're losing a tempo, the knight is pushed to a worse square, and now it's just a clean pawn down. And after f3, yeah, here I think was the first real point where he missed an opportunity. Because after castles, I don't think I'm saving this game.
Okay. So he took the pawn.
I checked it with the engine nowadays. So there's a thing with Stockfish these days, right? If it's more than +1 or less than -1, it's a win. It's a win for white if it's more than +1. It's less than -1, it's a win for black. Yeah. And that's sort of well known for people who are playing engine chess. So castles is already -1.1 something. It's over. Long term, it's over. I'm probably losing that. I mean, he'll probably, if he makes inaccuracies, I'll save, and it's an open tournament, so there was still maybe some hope. But I'm saying objectively, I'm lost after castles. And so let's go further. Knight 1 d2, and I think there was his last chance. He had to go bishop f5, and there was still some. Yeah, we can go. So this position also I felt was somewhat playable, right? Because for the pawn, you have the strong center, pass d pawn, bishops are looking good. I mean, optically, it looks okay if you see this position, but of course, engine doesn't like it. This is one case where I was literally fighting the engine the entire game. So king h1 was my idea. The point is just to get out of that diagonal, make a useful move. And after queen c7, knight d2, I think here is where he missed a trick, because if he had gone bishop f5, I still think he had good chances to win. But after ba3, it was over. I think it was fine. And the thing is, let's make one more move, bishop a3. And back in the days, I think knight b4 was being shown as a computer as a winning attempt for black. But when I checked it, just today I checked it with Stockfish, it's very equal after knight e4. And I've given the line as well for reference. So white sacrifices a second pawn. but the activity of the pieces more than compensate for the missing material. After queen b5 takes knight c5. I mean, the light squared bishop, the moment it comes out, black loses back one of the pawns, and it should be a savable position because of all the open fights. So after bishop a3, rook a3, knight b4, this idea knight c5 was very crucial. And after this, the game sort of ends up in a very complex but equalish position. We can play it out because the position gets very pretty after some point. I actually started playing for more here after bishop e4, a5, queen h5. I thought I'll mate because I have three pieces that are looking at the king, and potentially the knight can also get in, and the rook on a3 potentially swing in, but he defended well. And yeah, here I win back the pawn, and it's quite clear that dynamically, this is a nice trick. So I was trying everything I could, but he stayed quite firm. And yeah, I offered a draw after knight into g8 actually, because it was ending by force in a perpetual. So queen d4, one last trick, rook d1, and I had sacked a piece, I think now, but after knight g8, I just offered a draw because the pass pawns compensate, but they're not enough to win. So this was, I think, one game where I just wanted to show the initial days, the opening approach was very haphazard. And then later on, it became better. So I spoke to a lot of people. I cannot name one of the people I spoke to. It was done on confidentiality basis. But he actually gave me a lot of important suggestions. He's a very strong player, that much I'll say, and leave it at that. But he gave me a lot of interesting suggestions, and based off that, I decided to really narrow my repertoire. So initial days, if you see, I was playing a lot of e4, but then I started getting stuck against the Berlin and against the Najdorf, two lines where it is nearly impossible to get something from the opening, which is when I started switching more to d4. If you see, even 1-5-1-8, I was mostly playing d4. 1-5-2-1 is, whenever I played d4, I won. Otherwise, I was just making draws. The only game I won with e4 recently was very specific, again, targeted preparation against one person who I thought will not play Marshall. He tried to play it. I played an anti-Marshall and I outplayed him. This is in the World Cup qualifier. That's the only time I've done e4 recently and won. Otherwise, I do e4 against weaker players and generally win. So then I restricted my white repertoire mostly to e4, and sometimes I play the reti, the same lines that I recommend I end up playing in CC, and they're good lines. I mean, they end up in draws, but sometimes you can get lucky, and sometimes the position is so complex that Stockfish cannot immediately figure out. So mostly d4 as white. I would say nowadays that's what worked for me. And in d4 again, specifically the Catalan, I would say that has been the system that where I would say Catalan is what made me SIM, because the one win to get the norm and the title, it was achieved in the Catalan, and very, very one of my best games. Sack the exchange and
those games now, which are important for your title, SIM.
Yeah. So let me just finish the black repertoire also. So I started with French. Now I alternate that with the Sicilian nowadays. There was a phase I was doing exclusively classical Sicilian, but again, it became very annoying to play against these very high power engine users. I would name a few from the AICF arena. I think Arnab Sen Gupta is one. He basically, he followed my analysis till move 38. And then I offered him a draw and he accepted. So it became very annoying. I mean, I don't want to play out my analysis, like show me something fresh. So show me something interesting. So classical Sicilian became that. After some point, it was just playing out whatever I already had. So I switched back to the French, and I play French along with Kalashnikov nowadays in some of my events. Black against d4, I'm c4 also, I just transpose back to King's Indian. I think one initial days I did c4, e5, but now mostly King's Indian. King's Indian, and when I was struggling against Bayonet, I switched to Grunfeld. But then I've come back to the kit now because I have a few interesting ideas, but nobody is allowing me to play those ideas. So I'm sort of waiting for the day that those ideas see the light of day. So yeah, restrictive repertoire works. I was playing triangles.
How about Benoni? You talked about Benoni.
Yes,
Benoni.
Benoni, I have a very funny story. 1518, I played it against Rakesh Chauhan. I think he was playing d4 at that time. He went for 4 pawns, and I introduced this very interesting idea. After f4, I went bishop g4. I had one interesting rook sack in mind. But then just before I played that, I went and checked with an engine again, just to be sure, because this was analysis I had done a while back. And it turns out that move's losing. So I had to grow. Luckily for me, in that position, there was a way I could trade queens, go to an endgame. I am a pawn down. He has a pass deep pawn, but I have the bishop pair, and somehow I held a fortress and made it wrong. But Benoni, I think at the highest levels, timing of attack is still like the traditional move order. Timing of attack is still, I feel, a little bit of a problem, because bishop b5, nf d7, a4. I remember Stockfish beat Leela in some TSEC top engine chess championship game. This was a while back. I remember finding some idea recently, but I'll tell you it's very borderline. I would say the moment some new version of some engine comes and it finds a move that was previously underestimated, you'll probably lose. Benoni, you can do with the Nimzo order. I would say that is probably sounder. So you go d4, knight f6, c4, e6. And then once white plays knight f3 or g3, you go c5. And that way you have avoided the flick knife and the Taimanov attack. So that way you can still play it. But Taimanov attack, I would say, is the sort of the biggest pain nowadays when playing Benoni. King's Indian that way, I would say, is better, because in many ways to against classical system, you can play open, you can play the ones with knight a6, knight bd7. Even the main line, I think bayonet is more or less fine nowadays. At least for me, I mean, I see that Rafael Leto in his chess.com comments says bayonet, nobody has figured out how to equalize. I was thinking, please look at CC games, you will know how to equalize.
Yeah, because this bayonet was introduced by, I think, Kramnik in the late
Yes.
90s and 2000, and I think against Kasparov also. So then it was like a very new idea, but now I think there are strong systems. Actually, I want to come back to the Benoni. Benoni, I think I remember the great player Ugar Gashmov. He passed away very early.
Yes. Beautiful.
Fantastic. He was a very strong, proponent of this particular his lines. But the issue with that one is that he has also mentioned it was that if you use a computer and you use an engine and try to analyze, it always gives white an overwhelming advantage, not just an advantage. At least it goes +1, something close to that. So people, they shy away. But it is also like your Sicilian Najdov is quite sharp. So if you know how to navigate it and you understand it, you cannot play anti-engine move there. You will be in serious trouble. So that is something, one has to look at carefully.
I would say readers are requested to, our listeners should probably refer to my interview with Rustam Kazimjanov. He had released a chess-based DVD on the Benoni a few years ago, and I had the opportunity to interview him, and I think it's even published in Chess-Based India. Please go refer that. I'll see if I can find it. Because there, we spoke a lot about this. And he said, I was very surprised at how positionally sound the Benoni is. Because people usually thought it was a bag of tricks, and Tal was using it as a tricky opening, Gashimo tricky opening. But then it's also very sound positionally, right? Because when you exchange two pieces, when you exchange one set of pieces, black is fine. And when you exchange the second, it's usually black who ends up taking over, because the queen side majority becomes more relevant. And that was a very interesting point for me. I do have a few Benoni games in the base. I mean, people can look at it. The biggest problem for me was the 4 pawns. I mean, if I can find a way to keep play against a few specific lines while not losing, I would go back to it. And Benoni was my first love, is my first love in openings. I started with my OTB career with Benoni because of Tal's games. I think anybody who knows me well knows that I was a big fan, am a big fan of Tal, and my email ID was named after him, and lot of things. I would say my WhatsApp is after him, and yeah, very big fan of him. That's why I started.
Misha Tal? Or?
No, magician from Riga.
But your game
that
is
was
not so risky as Tal's sacrifices. So I don't know. Okay.
You have not seen me play OTB. You have not seen me play OTB. At least in the initial days, I used to be, as they say, Mad Hatter. I mean, there have been some games recently where I've also attacked and won like that. But nowadays it's also a little bit more difficult
Yeah.
because the level of defense has gone up a lot.
Yes,
It's
yes,
difficult
hopefully.
to get swashbuckling games, but I mean, my if anything, my swashbuckling Smith Mora on Chessable shows that it's still possible to play like that. So
So
hopefully
that's wonderful,
can get back
Tanmay.
to that
But
era.
I think we should go on and maybe in short tell us about the SIM title itself and how what are the games you played. I don't know whether you have them on this database, which
Yeah,
we'll look at them later.
no,
But you
it's in
can
the base.
perhaps
You can look
describe
at them.
to us how what was your feeling, how it went, and then the end we'll have your reactions on having reached the SIM. So these two questions.
Okay. Okay, sure. So these two events were critical. Friends of Kaisa and 34 anniversario, I think it's the name. So in the Friends of Kaisa, I needed 2 wins or +2 to achieve the title. So I wasn't really thinking about all that. I was just looking at the history of players, I knew that maybe there are chances to score a win because there were folks who were losing. And again, these were all 2,300 plus, 2,300, 2,350, and probably some of them even crossed that rating later. So it was mostly about can I just maximize my chances? So I just decided to stick to the same restrictive repertoire which I mentioned. So one of the games, which was a French winover, I dragged the game for a while. My opponent chose a very safe continuation, I should say. I was trying to find words. He exchanged queens very early as white, which is not something you do in a winover. You try to keep some material on the board for a while. I mean, endgames are good for white in general, but not this specific one because I got the king in very quickly and the game was equal, but then he was very slow. So I was just playing and playing. And at some point, I think he offered a draw or he offered a repetition of moves indirectly. And I refused. And the very 2 moves later, he lost on time. And that was one. The position was equalish, I should say. It's not that I was better, but it is still I would say, pragmatic choice from my end not to take an early draw. And there was another game where I was playing this person, Legmaat Geert, I think, from Netherlands. Very interesting Catalan. I mentioned about it in the article as well. I shouldn't say introduced the first idea, which is to sack the pawn. In the BB4 system of the Catalan, it's usually very straightforward and simple, right? Black gets a very solid position, difficult for white to break through. So I decided to choose a line where play becomes very sharp. At the cost of a pawn, we get a full center and hopefully kingside attacking chances. So I sacked a pawn first and then got my h pawn all the way to h6, sacked another pawn in the center with e6. And the play was generally very sharp, but roundabout equal, at least interesting. And then he started making small inaccuracies. Still didn't have any hope because there is such a wide breadth of available options. It was not anywhere close to winning. But then suddenly he makes a move. I mean, you can verify it with Stockfish later. Initially, it's Stockfish's first choice, but give it 5-10 seconds, loses by force. And then I
Okay.
remember after I made my next move and it's winning for me. And luckily my engine also, given some time, it saw it. And then I was saying, wow, I cannot believe I won this. Because just 5 moves later, this was move 28 or 27, he makes the mistake.
So
And then
here,
5 moves later, it is over.
small comment for our viewers who
So
are new to engine use in CC is that first of all, what he has mentioned, a few seconds it changes. On the player's computer who might be using a slower computer, it might have been around 10 or 12 seconds perhaps, and he didn't notice the transition. This effect, which is now quite less in engines, is called the event horizon. So when the engine is searching and the depth increases, then it finds and changes the situation completely. So the tip for all CC players is generally watch out for this event horizon effect, which is now minimized because of NNUE and other techniques which are used, but still it does exist to a certain extent. So always analyze to a certain depth, and when you are sure that you are converging, it's there that you got to make your choice. So this is a small point which I wanted to interject with, and then you can continue now.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that was a very crucial game, and I would say that is less about luck and more about keeping the position so sharp that Stockfish cannot immediately identify what's good and what's not. So that those 2 wins, I ended up winning the tournament, and that was a very crucial thing because then you get the first norm, and okay, even then I was not really thinking much about the title, right? Because it's very random. You don't know when you're going to win and what's going to happen. So I'll tell you one thing, that ever since I started drawing lots of games from 2022 to 24 beginning, I should say, I stopped thinking about norms, titles, ratings, and all that, because frankly, it didn't really matter to me much anymore. I was also actually telling a few people that I will stop playing CC after the national championship. And then I got into the semifinals of the World Correspondence Chess cycle. And then I was telling people, I will stop after this, I'm done. And now I made my title. So now, I don't know, there might be a further event I play and I say, I'm done after this. So I was watching this Gukesh interview and he's telling every time I lose, I think of quitting chess. I mean, we have a similar tendency that way. Every time I draw every game in an event, I say I'm done. But then something keeps pulling me back. So I went in with zero expectations. So even when I made the first norm, I wasn't really thinking about the title. And then the second tournament was very funny. I was on course to match my record of all draws again. But then one game against Hunger Horst, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correct. It's from Germany. It's in the base. He was making a few interesting decisions which I was not really liking. And again, maybe it's because of the event Horizon, as Dr. Chatterjee was mentioning. It was at the lower depths that the computer felt that he was making mistakes. Actually, the depths that I was checking at, it was still flatline equal for a long time. And then, but I knew that the game was trending in my favor. So of course, I didn't really, even then I'm not thinking about winning, right? Because they can just pull the plug at some point. It's not really in our control. And then he makes this one move, bishop into a4. And then I realized, okay, the game's finished. Because I think that was a decisive mistake. Until then, that was that moment he had to play some b5 and it's borderline, he barely holds. But he took that pawn and that was losing and I managed to win. He actually resigned much earlier than I expected. I thought he will play on until it becomes clear. I'm a whole rook down in the final position, but he's probably getting mated or loses his queen. So he resigned, and then I knew I made the title. I was telling Dr. Chatterjee even 4 months back, because the moment he made bishop a4, I messaged him and said, okay, I'll make the title soon. But then he was telling me on a phone call that he didn't believe me.
I thought at that time that you're overconfident, because you had a way of saying it which tended to indicate, yeah, I'm winning, it's over, I'm going to become, I'll get the title, nothing to stop me. So I was, till the proof, of course, the proof of the pudding came in the eating. So, that you proved yourself. It wasn't just confidence, it was also a fact. But at that time I thought, chalo, let's wait and see.
Yeah.
That was interesting. And there was this one game which made me the title finally. I needed a draw. I mean, I had the draw anytime I wanted, but he was playing so slow at the triple block tournament. I think Dr. Chatterjee was discussing it quite extensively in the group, and a lot of discussion happening around the format. He's playing very slow. I think the person had just 20 days left, and the tournament is supposed to end in Jan. And this was around May, June. So I thought I'll play for a win. I was avoiding forced draws. I even took a risk where I went into a worse position and I thought I'll just play, run out of time. But he decided to pull the plug at some point, because when you're black, there's very little you can do in terms of playing for a win like that. You can take fewer liberties than when you're white. So he found a line which more or less forced a draw. And then I had a choice there as well. Do I go into a lost position and try to flag him? But then I thought that's too risky. So it's fine. I'm getting the title, whatever. Let me just make a draw. So that's how I made it. That's how the SIM title came.
So what are your ambitions now that you have become SIM?
I mean, I did cover it, right? I'm not really, I changed a lot. I should say, after being initiated into Samyama by Sadhguru. It's a very advanced meditation program. So I meditate about 3 hours a day now. When I started CC, I was very volatile, emotional, and I think now I'm a wholly different person, if I'm allowed to say so. I would say when I started these two tournaments, or when I'm playing even the national championship, which I'll soon win, I didn't really have any goal of winning, and it's happening. So I would say I'll stick to the same approach. If the GM norms and the title is meant to happen, it will. Otherwise, it's not. It's fine for me either ways. It's not, it's not that I'm a good person if I become a GM and I'm a bad person if I don't. It's not, chess is not a very big part of my identity anymore. But I would say that, the only goal is to give 120% every single game and see if it's possible to play interesting games, take chances, keep learning. I would say that's the only focus, because, and frankly, to me, the significance of the SIM title, because you keep saying it that the fourth Indian ever and the second active Indian, and I'm the second active Indian with Sashi Kiran, who's such a top player and a legend in the Indian chess. So maybe it's not hitting me much; it's hitting a lot of other people in a different way. For me, it is just another thing. So I will probably look at the next few tournaments also the same way, right? If I get lucky in the semifinals and make my first GM norm, then we'll talk whether I make the title or not. Because Sashi has been trying for 9 years and he's still not done it. People have there have been so many seniors ahead of me who were trying for IM and SIM. They've still not done it. I mean, Pavan Kumar, I thought he would have done it by now. He's such a great player and a champion. He has still not made the SIM title, and he was much ahead of me when I started. So you never know what will happen. It's I would say for me, I just go with zero assumptions. Try to give my best every game, but I don't really think about titles, ratings, but no goal. Just enjoy and learn.
Well,
I would
from
say
India's
that
point
would be
of
the
view,
approach.
and for AIWCF in particular, we'll be really privileged and proud if Tanmay can make it, because getting a GM today in ICCF is a near impossibility, as you yourself mentioned, looking at such an experienced player and who is changing from OTP to CC. Shashi Kiran's example you quoted. I just hope somehow or the other it works, because looking at Danish's GM journey, it's very different. It doesn't work. That interview of Danish which you did and helped me to record his, that doesn't work today. That was something in that era. You can't play like that now and become a GM. So I think something new will evolve, and you've shown us that something evolved. We couldn't have expected you to become. Actually, I didn't know, or expect, I should say. I didn't expect you to become SIM so quickly, and it happened. So you never know. Let's see, right? So with that, we almost come to the end. I
Yeah.
will ask Anil Kumar to make a closing remark or two, and then we'll wind up for now.
Yeah, thank you, Tanmay, for giving us an opportunity to interview in the first place. I think we are all having very busy life schedules, and on an off day, or for me at least, it's an off day. But you have managed to come this far, and that too in a very short time. And of course, I have seen your performance at the national championship level, and I think we have had some interactions on our WhatsApp group, where I could see that you were very much into this engine chess, and looking at really, I think similar to I think Om Prakash also, you are more interested in seeing deep lines, because as Dr. Chatterjee mentioned, in the previous generations such depth of analysis was not there. But I believe what Dr. Chatterjee said before, that it's very demanding time. It demands a lot of time and effort to, find novelties, 30, 40 moves deep. And, the biggest challenge today I see is that many lines are almost at zero eval, almost equal lines, and you will find more than 5 or 6 moves giving the same eval. And then going deep down and finding one line which gives you more opportunity, or where you can have a more imbalanced position, and then trying to carve out a win. These are the real challenges, and I can see that you have managed to work through this and navigate and come to a situation where you have straight away been able to make 1 or 2 ranks above. And I think the same spirit, I think, you'll carry it through with you. And we all look forward, and we'll be proud to see you become the next GM. And I think it will require a certain level of effort and time. And as you said, you should narrow down your repertoire. And I think you should also narrow down the number of tournaments that you play. As you said, one tournament is more than enough. And I used to see the same trait with even Mr. Dhanesh. We used to invite him for thematics or national tournaments, and he simply used to tell me that he doesn't have the time. And I don't know if you read about him, the kind of preparation he made to make the GM. He installed a certain kind of
Yeah.
no, he was in Calicut. I met him in Calicut, actually. at NIT Calicut. I had an opportunity, and he had made special arrangements to see that there's no power interruption, and those were the times, because in Kerala there was frequent power cuts, and he used to keep his computer on analysis mode, and the power used to go off. So he had his own, I think, solar panel power generation systems and things like that. I mean, it was more of those kind of things, the infrastructure to be ready for keeping on analysis mode. But today, with the neural networks, that gap has narrowed. But at the same time, today the general level or the standard of CC players is much higher, I believe. Even as you said, the CCM may be as strong as a GM as far as the analysis and the computer access and engine usage is concerned. So it requires even more effort and involvement. And I think we would all love to see you become the next GM. So because you are on that path, and I believe when you're having an upward spiral, as when you're doing very well and things are working in your favor, this is the right time. They say that you should strike the iron when it's hot. So this is the right time. Maybe in the next 1 year or 2 years is the right time when you will be able to reach your peak. I think you're still peaking, seeing the level of your games. I can see that you continue to play very strong chess. I won't say it is very sharp, but same time, it is not totally safe. You take some risks, and it is being working out for you. And wish you all the best. And we look forward to also your article, which you promised to write for us. It will be interesting to see what kind of ideas you generate. And I would suggest that you try to pick up one or two good games where you feel that you feel satisfied on a personal level as an achievement, and where you feel that you have made the best play, because there's a difference. I often see in CC, there's a big difference between a move which is not very good and a move which is losing. So if you see, it is not that people make obvious blunders that they lose. It is a position where if one on an equal position, one side keeps on making incremental advancement or advantages, which ultimately culminate in a totally blocked position, or where the opponent is having very limited moves, and most of the moves are not going to work in their favor. And then you have a chance of a knockout blow or something like that, a move which ultimately wins. But you can see it is a slow and very agonizing, I should say, the process. And I wish you all the best, so that you continue to sharpen your repertoire, and show those your classic games, so that they become the standard for our players in AIWCF. If I look at it, actually, in AIWCF, if I leave out the top 20 or top 30, the average standard is not very high. But when you go to other countries like Russia or Ukraine, or we see opponents, they are quite strong. You would see the 20th player is as strong as maybe the top 5, and it's not even easy to cover a draw against them. So we want you to continue to work hard and achieve greater heights. It will be all our dream, or in our sincere wish, to see you become the next GM, because we are not having a GM in a long time now, almost. I think it is about 15 years or so. So
Yes. Danish made it, I think, back in 16 to 18, that range, I think, right?
Or
yes, so it's almost 10 years or more.
Different type. The quality of the GM is different than that GM. Different. I won't say quality, not a correct word, but I mean the type of play required at that time. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And that's where I think, based on the era also, it becomes much harder. Right nowadays, it's more about I would say centaur collaboration has become even more important. Then you could sort of, that era, I would say, like you said, right, the floor was not very high, so you could still score wins of the others. And I think that's where, and also with Danish, like you said, the amount of effort he's put is really remarkable. I have read that Hindustan Times article. I have read.
You were there.
I did do that interview with Dr. Chatterjee and Danish. We had one. So I could see the amount of effort that he had put in. I definitely think, hopefully, I mean, it does happen. I'll be good. It'll be good for correspondence chess in India in specific. And let's see what the future has to unfold. Thank
I
you.
have
Thank
one
you.
last question, if I may. One last question is that I'm in touch with most of our AIWCF players, Om, Prakash, Gautam Day, and Anirudh Dattagupta, and many people are there. Most of these people have invested a lot in one is the software part of it, the latest softwares. In addition to that, is the hardware part of it, like getting more sophisticated laptops and these things. What is your take on this, just to have an idea?
Yeah, I think you do need good hardware nowadays, but I do not think that should be a distinguishing factor for achievement. I when I started in when I started correspondences during the pandemic, I had a 4-core desktop, and I have a 6-core laptop that I use today. And Pavan Kumar is probably the star example of somebody who used very weak hardware and got up to IM level. I always take his name when people come and talk to me about hardware. Yes, it is useful, but it isn't as big a differentiator as it was, let's say, 10 years ago, because now even your 6-core, if you buy a 1 lakh rupee laptop now today, which is like your standard gaming laptop, right? Buy something which has 8 cores, decent graphics card, should be able to get the job done. I would say the distinguishing factor more than hardware and software today is the ability to identify positions which either the engine underestimates, which is rare, like Dr. Chatterjee said, it's very rare to do it nowadays, or identify positions where there is a lot more play than what meets the eye. You cannot just expect, copy pasting depth 20 to work. I would say that skill is more important today than having extremely good hardware or extremely good software. Because I do mention in my Chessbase India article that somebody used Stockfish 12, I was using 14, he made it draw effortlessly. I was using 13 plus, I think, or close to 14, he was using 12, made it draw effortlessly. And that as you increase the depth of analysis, the range of rating difference, I should say, that reduces. So doesn't really make much of a difference in my view. I mean, I still use the same 6-core laptop. When I used to have Chessbase membership, I used to use from time to time. I've used Cloud Engines, but I never really had too much credit, so it would be like a 1-minute run, I think. So, I, yeah, I would put it that way. It is important, but not as important as it
Okay,
used to.
so thank you, both of you. It's been wonderful. We'll close for today. It's lovely to have you, and wonderful again. We'll publish this extracts of this in the bulletin as well, and we'll have it on our YouTube channel soon. So bye for now.